Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of the forever, never-ending midterm season to come through this workshop. We're super excited to have you here. So this is the third installation of our Careers in Social Impact Tech workshop series, and this is going to be an intro to open source. Go ahead and next slide. Thank you. So just brief intro about Acm Impact. We're a new initiative of Acm that's focused on socially responsible engineering, social impact tech, and tech policy. Our mission is really to just create a community at UCLA that's really committed to just creating an actual impact within tech, improving the impact of technology and the tech industry as a whole. We also have a tech policy blog series, and you can find that on the same link as our initial intro blog post that we created that will that introduce the initiatives that we are having this quarter. So who are your hosts? If you've been to a previous one of our workshops, you already know us, but we'll still introduce ourselves regardless. My name is Ashley. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a third-year linguistics and computer science major and Spanish linguistics minor, and I am super, super passionate about social impacts and community organizing as a whole. And then as I came to UCLA, I discovered the tech world and kind of got involved in that. And I saw the potential that tech has for just innovation in any sense, and especially within social impact and community health and progress. So that's kind of where my passions lie. I'll let Maya introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm a second-year computer science major with an environmental systems and society minor. My pronouns are she, her. And yeah, I just am really interested in, I guess, breaking down some of the unethical practices of big tech. Also, sorry, I'm sitting in the dark. And I want to figure out what are some ways that we can change that. So that's why impactful tech is really important to me. And also shout out to Timothy Gu, who basically gave us all the content for this workshop today. He's the best, the GOAT.
We love you, Tim. Awesome, perfect. So what will the series cover? If you came to our first two workshops, the first one was a basic intro workshop to what do careers in social impact tech look like? What can they be? A definition of social impact tech, all of that. Our week 4 panel was a career panel. So we actually had people in industry and nonprofits who are involved in different facets of social impact tech who came and talked to us, and we had breakout rooms. It was super cool. This week we are doing our intro to open source and careers in open source, which I don't know if that's something that's usually talked about. I haven't heard it, so I'm excited. And then 2 weeks from now on Thursday, we will have a student org panel. So kind of as a parallel to our career panel, we're going to be showing y'all how can you get involved now at UCLA. So we're super excited for that. And then we can get into our content on open source. So today's agenda for today's workshop, first, we're going to define what open source is. We're going to make that connection to social impact tech and possible careers you can go into. And then Maya will lead us through an interactive walkthrough of making your first pull request. So super excited for that. And then we will very briefly show y'all some resources for getting started with open source, because I know it can be intimidating at first. And then we'll leave room for any questions that you may have. So before we start, we want to give you a disclaimer. This is a workshop for people who are maybe kind of beginners or beginner-ish at open source. We are also not experts. Open source has a really, really rich and deep, and I put low-key revolutionary history. It's super cool. We're all really interested in it, but we're both, Maya and I are both still really actively learning a lot about it along with you. We're definitely no experts, and online resources are our friend. So we definitely welcome you to ask us any questions you may have about open source, but if it's something that's kind of beyond our scope, we can definitely refer you to some online resources.
And just to interrupt Ashley, so we are going to be making our first pull request through a game at the end of the workshop. So if you're planning on staying for that, if you could download the game at twilio.com/quest, they're linked in the slides if you have access to that. Thank you, Amin. And also Git and Node, if you don't have to, but if you want to save a little bit of time for us, it would be really helpful if you guys could download that right now while we're going through the rest of the workshop.
Yeah, if you don't already have it. You may have it if you, for example, were in CS 97. But yes, perfect. Thank you, Amin, for adding those links in the chat. So you definitely can download those while we go through this. So now, as promised, what is open source? So we can start by kind of defining and deconstructing that. And we got our definition from Wikipedia, which is an open source knowledge base. So love the connection, full circle. And so Wikipedia defines open source or open source software as a type of computer software where there is source code that's released under a license. So the copyright holder of that source code will grant the users the right to use, study, change, and distribute that software to anyone and for any purpose. So it is kind of almost like an intuitive definition of what you think open source means. It literally means that this source code is open for use, open for distribution, open for editing and writing it yourself. And so it can be developed in a collaborative public manner. And it is a prominent example of open collaboration. So that's why we're super excited. Just very quickly, what are the tools that you usually need to work on open source? Having like a command line tool. So if you use Mac OS like Maya and I, that will be your terminal. If you are in Windows, that will be command prompt. If you're in Linux, that will be Ubuntu. Is that how you pronounce it? Because I've only ever seen it in writing. So I hope that's how you pronounce it. And so these are just the ways that essentially like a terminal can be used on different like operating systems, depending on what you have. And a command line tool is just a way for you to basically interact with the files and the information that are on your local computer. So basically, like instead of clicking and dragging and renaming your files and doing other cool things that you can do with your mouse, you would do those same things and maybe more by typing like shorthand commands into your terminal or whatever command line tool that you use. And you can also use your terminal to open certain files and then start coding directly in them. So it's super cool. It's something that if you're in CS classes, you will learn how to do. And then also Git and GitHub, which we will explain very shortly what those are. The other tools are a big brain, which you all have, and also a desire to work on cool projects collaboratively. And Maya and I left some possibly controversial hashtags for you all. Next slide. So very quickly defining some common terminology. So I said I'd tell you what Git and GitHub are. I didn't know what Git and GitHub were. I went into CS97 not knowing, and it was a really fun time. So I never want y'all to experience that. So we're gonna define it now. So Git is just a tool for version control. What does that mean? I like to think of it as like the Google Docs of coding. It's a way for you to track the changes that you make on a project and work collaboratively with other programmers on the same project. I'll explain what bread means in a second. A repository, also a repo, it's just a fancy word for like a software project or anywhere that you can store software packets. So it's just like a project, think of it like that. GitHub is the most popular online Git hosting service. So basically you use Git to, like I said, track any changes that you make on a project and then work collaboratively on it. You can do that online with other users collaboratively through GitHub. So I put bread and butter because Git and GitHub are like the bread and butter of open source. Awesome. So other common terminology is a fork. So we'll go through all of these commands when you do the run through. Just want to give basic definitions now. A fork is basically, so you find someone else's project or repository on GitHub, let's say. You do a fork so that you can create a personal remote copy, aka online copy, onto your GitHub account of their project. Then cloning it would be creating a local copy from that repository that you had online onto your computer. So almost like downloading it. Yeah, taking a piece of someone else's bread. Exactly. Thank you, Am. I love that. Exactly. Then you've cloned it onto your computer. So it's on your literal local computer. It's not just online anymore. And then once you branch and merge, basically, like I said, how Git is a way to make different changes and track the changes that you're making. You basically, when you want to start coding and making changes to a project that already exists, you don't want to do it on the main line of development, which is called the master branch, because if you mess up and you save it, it's hard to go back, right? So basically you create a branch, which is kind of literally like, imagine this is like the trunk of a tree and you create a branch. It's just an independent line of development. So then you can edit, make sure everything works correctly before you then merge it back with the master. So that's the way to think of that. I know it may be kind of abstract now if you've never heard of this before, but once we go through the run through, you can hopefully understand it better. Committing just means saving the changes that you made into the actual Git history. And then pushing and then making a pull request is almost like the mirror of forking and cloning. So when you push, you, instead of like downloading onto a local computer, you made all these edits, you saved them on your local computer, and you're uploading it back to the online repo that you had on your account. And then a pull request is then literally requesting, it's like sending a message almost to the project collaborators to let them know, oh, I've pushed this change onto like my own branch of the repo, and then they can review what you've changed, make sure it doesn't conflict with anything. They can give you feedback if you like broke something that they didn't want you to break, and then they can merge it into the master branch. Yes, like you take a piece of someone else's bread. I love this full circle analogy. And then you just give them some cheese toast back in return. Like you've made your changes, you made it more delicious, and then you give it back. So perfect. Next slide, please. So now we've given you a little intro to what open source is. How do you meld that into a social impact tech career? So how is open source related to social impact tech? How does it even equal social impact tech if we want to say that they're the same thing? And the biggest thing is just the fact that it's open collaboration, right? So just the fact that open source is by its nature collective and collaborative work, that in itself makes a social impact on the tech world, right? Like that's pretty revolutionary for a field that's so like corporate and individualistic and competitive. So that's a whole, like I loved learning about open source when I first heard about it in UCLA CS, because that's not the feeling that I've gotten in a lot of my really competitive classes, right? And so teams are actually here working together, building this open source technology for anyone to use. It's not about ownership. It's not about profit. It's public property. We love that. And then also another cool thing is like when it's actually being applied to impact projects, right? So not just, oh, in its very nature, it is impact related. If that feels kind of hand wavy to you, or I don't know, then think of it like, okay, people can actually make social impact projects and entire communities can really come together to build the solutions to their own community problems. I think that's pretty revolutionary. I love to see it. So that's kind of where that link comes from. Where do we see that in action? Hack for LA, Maya and I have been super enjoying finding all of these awesome places. So you can actually, if you have the slides, and we can link them again in the chat, those images are all hyperlinked with the websites to these places. So Hack for LA is awesome. They're basically a whole structured program where there's a ton of different open source projects under Hack for LA, and it's a bunch of teams. And these are all, yeah, Maya just linked the slide, thank you. These are all projects that are literally community oriented within LA. Any social good or social justice or social impact kind of issues that can be solved through tech, these teams are solving them. So that's super cool. OVO is also something that we found that has a big collection of different, like, I think they have civic tech and social impact tech and COVID-19 stuff. And it's just a collection of different GitHub repositories that have open source projects that are working in impact. So that's super cool. And then GitHub has their own social impact like division. And so that's also super cool to read about. And they have some like a collection of their own repositories as well. So you can, if you have the slides link, you can click on any of those. So what are some ways to get involved if you're like, I don't know, I haven't really done open source before, I don't know how to get involved in this. The first thing is use open source tech and software, which you already probably are doing. Like it's kind of everywhere and we don't even realize that we're doing it. If you find bugs, you can note them and then you can go fix them if you find the public repository. I know GitHub has a social impact collection. Evan just said that in the chat. I know, I didn't know that either. I was doing research for this workshop when I found that, and I thought it was super cool. So definitely just like, if you find bugs in software you're already using, you can note them and you can go fix them. If code is scary, I'm right there with you. You can actually improve the documentation of certain projects or repositories that are on GitHub, which I thought was a great idea. Shout out to Tim for the suggestion again, because I think this is super interdisciplinary. So you don't have to be a CS major. You could be an English major for all I care. You could be working on open source software, because for every project or repository, if you haven't seen a GitHub repository before, there's always like a README, which is just the like almost like what's on the homepage of a GitHub repo. It tells you what the project is, what the goal is, what issues they may be having right now, anything like that. You can be like, this tech person is not a great writer or communicator. I could do this better, and I can support them through their documentation. That's open source as well, and you can absolutely work on that as open source software like development. Excuse me. You can also look, like if you want to just explore through GitHub, there are some tags that developers will have on their bugs that need fixing. That could be, for example, good first issue or help wanted. So you can go looking for those tags specifically, and you can go work on those, and they will probably be at an easier difficulty level if you're starting out. Aside from that, and aside from the links that we left in the last slide on the images, you can also Google open source social impact, and you can check out, there's like a ton of articles that come up with links to different repos that are social impact oriented. So now, tying that all together, how can you turn this into a career? So it may not be super conventional. I mean, we've seen it with like Eggert, if you've taken an Eggert class before, but open source can be an actual career. And also like specifically full-time open source has become more popular recently because of this, like, there's this rise suddenly, I feel like in the past few years, of donation culture. And I put examples, like there's Patreon. You can actually have a GitHub sponsorship. There's like a GitHub, like a sponsorship page on certain repos, I think. And then I linked other things as well that are kind of open source donation oriented. And then I also linked Henry, I think his last name is Zhu. If I pronounced it wrong, please tell me. He left his 9-to-5 to work on open source full time. And if you click on his name where it's hyperlinked there, you can actually read his story, which I thought was super cool. It can also be like a passion project or projects. If you end up with like a 9-to-5 or a big tech job, but you still want to make really like social impactful tech, open source could also be something that you do as a side project, just because that's something that you want to do when you're not working. Next slide, please. We also wanted to drop here, if you do have open source experience, or if you end up gaining it in the future, how can you kind of market that? How can you brag about that? So if you want to put it on your resume, if you feel like you have more, I know there's typically like a technical project section on a resume for CS. If you have more or more significant open source experience than you have projects, like side projects, you can put an open source section instead of a project section. And anytime that you want to include an open source project on your resume, you can include like the name of the repo or the project, your role, whether you're a contributor, developer, maintainer, owner, author, and that's kind of going up the ladder in that order. You'll put the months and the years in which you worked on it, and then what your impact was. So like, not only I worked on this repo, but like, what did you do? What did you specifically work on? What was the result? Was there like an improvement in, I don't know, like a latency, something, results, impact oriented. And then on your LinkedIn, you can also include it if you want. If it's like a really well-known project, like for example, I think Tim has worked on like Node.js, then there may be actually like a company page on LinkedIn for it. You can list that as work experience. Otherwise, if it's a smaller project or smaller repo, you can list it on that project section that's lower down on your LinkedIn profile. And you can include similar info from your resume, which is like, what did you work on and what were the results of that? Okay, perfect. So that was kind of my intro presentation section. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. Before we kind of go through that walkthrough, we just wanted to drop the feedback form one more time. But Maya will, she just dropped the feedback form, but Maya is gonna go on with that walkthrough. So Just letting y'all know. Oh yeah, also the membership portal code if you'd like as well.
Okay, yeah, and if you have to, if you have to go, feel free to leave because these are all on the slides. Oh my God. Okay, hold on, I'm gonna start sharing my my desktop. But yeah, these are all on the slides, so you if you have to go, it's fine. You can like follow through the. Oh my God, sorry.
It is gonna be fun just because Maya's presenting it, so I hope you don't leave. Only leave if you like absolutely have to.
If Maya doesn't have incredible technical difficulties. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to share my desktop without sharing the entire Zoom meeting. Okay, Ashley, it's gonna be your face. Also, I can't really see the chat,
okay.
So hopefully,
I can let you know if there's any chat.
I'm pretty sure Zoom doesn't show Zoom itself when you share your
screen. It doesn't. You can just share desktop.
Okay. Hopefully it doesn't. Can you guys see yourself? All right, sweet. So the first thing that we're gonna do is go to Twilio. So Twilio Quest, hopefully you have it downloaded. If you don't, take a little bit of time.
I'll drop it in the chat again.
Yeah, thank you. We're gonna play this really cool game called Twilio Quest. It's made by Twilio and it has a lot of different little programming games. And one of them is making a pull request. So we're gonna walk through that right now. So if you can press play Twilio Quest and it will load. And hopefully if anyone is not caught up, just say something in the chat and Ashley will interrupt me. But yeah, so I'm gonna start by entering my name and I'll pick little me. Hello. Okay. And you can end the conversation, unfortunately, because we don't have a lot of time and I'm gonna walk you through everything that you really need to know for at least making a pull request. So if you, wow, I'm sorry, I'm going through this too fast, but if you go down from when you enter and go to the right, and then you'll hit this like little thing that makes an exclamation mark pop up above you. And then if you press space, it'll take you, yeah, Ashley?
You're moving with your arrow keys?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm moving with WASD or arrow keys, and then space bar to like do an actionable item. And then the Flame of Open Source is the game that we want, and it's right there. So I'm gonna click on that and then click on Launch Mission. And so basically this game is gonna take you through all the steps of what we talked about in the introduction to the workshop, and my laptop is already breathing so heavy. So you can use the arrow keys.
Before you start, if people's music on the game is, how do they turn off the music on the game, just in case?
Oh yeah,
I know that was a thing.
If you click on this, the little icon, your icon on the top left, and you go to settings, and then you can just click on mute, or I mean mute, it will say mute for you. Yeah, because the game can be a little, the noise can be a little annoying. It's really cool though, so if you have a chance to play it by yourself, I recommend playing it with the music on. But yeah, so if you, yes.
You might want to wait for people to open the game if they're trying to play with you, because it took me a while to load it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll wait for like 1 minute right now. But if anyone has any questions, put it in the chat, or if you're like kind of a little tiny bit behind, which is totally understandable because I talk really fast and I'm really bad with pacing. So, but yeah, there's no shame in feeling left behind.
You're not bad with pacing. What I do want to know is, what are those little things around the screen supposed to be? Like the little animations on the side. Like, are they mushrooms?
Oh, these little things?
Giant mushrooms? Like what?
I still have, this is the third time that I've been doing this and I have no idea. It looks like pumpkins on fire. I actually
it does look like there's a, wait, that's actually really accurate. It looks like, you know, Toad from Mario Kart?
Toad. Yeah. Ooh, something in the chat. Yeah, if you're waiting for the game to load, please put something in the chat or speak up. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep it moving.
Yeah, also I do want to say, like, as a precursor, like you have the choice of downloading the game now and walking through it with us, or if you'd rather watch and absorb for the first time, however you learn best. Like if you want to watch Maya doing it and absorb it and then try it on your own later, the only difference is if you have questions, we may not be able to, like we won't be immediately there to answer them, but it's however you learn best. And we will have the walkthrough on the slides as well if you want to review.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna walk over to the first laser and then press space if this freaking works. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do to advance in the game is to create a GitHub account. So I'm going to open a new Chrome window, and I actually already have a GitHub account, but I can open an incognito window to show you what it looks like when you're not logged in. So if you go to github.com, and maybe some of you already have an account, but you can click sign up and then you just put in what username you want, email address, password. It's like a pretty standard login. And then verify everything. So it'll probably take like 1 minute. So I'm just gonna wait for a bit. And once you have your username, you can input it into the little box here and then press hack and it'll work. So wait for like 30.
In the meanwhile, what does the let's do this do?
Ooh, good question, Ashley. So if you go to let's do this, it will give you kind of an overview of what this action is doing. So like we said, GitHub is really popular for hosting Git repositories, for sharing code, for backing up code to like a different server if you don't want it, in case your local computer gets wiped out. Siri, shut up. If your local computer gets wiped or something, at least you have the code on GitHub. And then if you need even more, this is like an overview, and if you need even more stuff, for all the stations in this game, if you click help, it'll basically walk you through step by step to like completing this objective. So hopefully you have a GitHub account by now. I'm gonna go ahead and enter my username. And yeah, they'll look for the GitHub account. They found it, so I'm done. I earned some points. I don't really know what the points mean or what they do, but it's pretty cool. And then I'm gonna move to the next station. So now we're gonna make an open pixel art fork. So open pixel art is a repository that Twilio made for this game. So you can add, we'll look at what it actually looks like later, but you can basically add a bunch of pixels with a pull request. So I'm gonna open a new window and I'm going to go to github.com and let me try to find open pixel art. Okay, perfect. So if you click on the link that's under objective open pixel art, it'll take you to Twilio Labs's GitHub repository. And to make a fork, which is basically copying the repository to your own GitHub account, you just press fork in the top right corner. So I'm gonna press fork. I've already done it multiple times, but basically over here, there should be an option to fork it and then, or like an option to accept. And then once you press that, you can go to your account and you can go to repositories and then you will find your own version of open pixel art and it should look like this. So I'll just give people like 30 seconds to do that. And if there
So
are
what
any
I'm going to do,
questions.
Maya, is I'm actually going to launch a poll right now because I just want to really quickly see like if people are going to be playing the game alongside you, then we can wait. If people just prefer to watch, then we won't wait.
Okay, that sounds
so I'm just
good.
going to launch that real quick. So feel free to take the 30 seconds to just answer that question. Wait about 10 more seconds, just in case anyone still wants to respond. Okay, so about a third of the people are actually playing along, so we can still do waiting. So
Okay.
please, if you do need extra time and we start moving past, just drop something in the chat and be like, wait, I'm still catching up, and that's totally fine. You can even just like private message us if you prefer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Now it's my turn to have a vacuum going on in my house. But
Good.
yeah, so once you've created the fork, it should be like you see here, it should have this little symbol, like fork symbol next to it, and it'll be on your GitHub account. And then you can press hack and they'll look through your GitHub and they found it. So now we've done those things. We have forked we've created our GitHub account and we've forked a repository. So good. And also what I forgot to say is what forking a repository does kind of creates a bridge between the original repository and your own forked repository. And that makes it a lot easier when you actually want to contribute code to that repository. Having that bridge already there just makes the process a lot smoother as opposed to like writing your own file and then trying to add that in. So forking is always very good. So now I'm going to move to the next one. Now we're going to use the Git command line tools. So if someone could put the links in the chat again to download Git, that would be great. I'm not going to wait for too long. Hopefully you guys not already have it downloaded, but hopefully we'll be able to keep up. And basically what the command line tools look like is terminal. So this is what my terminal looks like. It's small. Terminal is like really boring to use, but it's really, really powerful. And I already have Git downloaded. So in order to check that while you guys are downloading, I can run Git -v or Git -- version. Maybe Git -v works as well, unless I messed up. Yeah, okay, I did not mess up. So, and it'll give me the version of Git that's on my computer, and I don't really care about the version, but it just confirms that I have it downloaded. Have it downloaded. So since I know I have it downloaded, I'm gonna go ahead and press hack. And they found Git on my computer. Let me check. Yeah, and usually some computers come installed with Git. If you've downloaded Xcode for CS31 and CS32 and you're a Mac user, then you should already have Git downloaded. And I will press on to the next one, the next station. So now we're going to add a username and email address that connects our Git account. And honestly, I kind of forgot the command, but basically when you make a commit, which Ashley talked about, it's basically saving a bit of code that you've added or changed. You want your name and your email and whatever to be attached to it, not only for the project as a whole. Obviously, they want to see who's committing things, but just, I don't know, for your own reference, it makes it cool. I don't know. And so how you can do that is they have the commands in the help section here. So if I run git config global so that it saves it, I guess, in the whole computer, and I can type user.name, and then so that there's like a user component, and it's telling us, I'm telling it what I want the name to be, and my name is Maya Raman, so I'm gonna run that, and now it saved my name as Maya Raman. Let me check the chat. Oh, thank you, Nisha. And then I'll also run, I want to attach my email to it, so I'm gonna run git config global user.email, and then I don't remember what email I have attached to my Git account, but you'll put in your email. I don't want to mess it up, so I'm not going to actually run that command because it already has it downloaded in some way. But that will tell Git that like this is your email, this is what your stuff is connected to. So now I'm going to press hack. Hopefully it works. Yeah. And now I'm going to move on to the next one. Actually, before I go to the next one, if you go down past, usually in the gameplay, we're going to go to this. But if you go down past it, there's actually a station where you can plant a tree. If you click hack, and Twilio will donate $1 to plant a tree. I've already planted it. I guess they don't take multiple requests, which is kind of sad. But yeah, that's a fun little interlude. So now I'm going to go to this next one. So now we're going to use Git to clone our repository. So if you remember, forking is taking one online repository and copying it to another online repository. So I took Twilio's and I forked it to Maya Raman 19. Cloning is taking that online repository and now copying it onto my local computer. And to do that, I'm going to first delete the copy of OpenPixelArt that I already have on my computer. Oh, sweet, I already deleted it earlier. But anyway, to do that, I'm going to go to github.com, and then I'm going to go to my own version of OpenPixelArt. And you can see that it gives us this URL. So when you go to code and click the down menu, and it gives you a URL. And what you can do, this URL is basically the connection to this online repository. So first, I'm going to use the command line to move into the place where I want to store this repository. So basically everything in your computer is a folder or a file. Your desktop is a folder. And if I type ls into the command line, it's going to list everything that's in my current folder, which is currently my user on the computer. So we can see applications, documents, downloads, whatever, music. Desktop is the main one. Desktop is the one where I want my OpenPixelArt folder to go. So in order to move into the desktop using the command line, I'm going to type cd, which stands for change directory, I believe, and then type where I want to change into, which is desktop. And then so as you can see, what was first, my command line was in my home directory, which is like the default that it starts in, and now it's in desktop. And now in order to get OpenPixelArt onto my desktop, I'm going to type git clone and then copy the URL that I initially copied from GitHub, and that's going to tell Git, like, this is where you find the repository. And then so once I press enter, it's going to take a couple minutes. It was actually really fast. And now if I move all of this stupid stuff out of the way, I can see that OpenPixelArt is on my desktop now. Hopefully you guys can see that. So in order to get that path, the path is like the address of your repository. You can look on the slides. I've kind of gone into it in a little more detail, but it's basically the address of a file or a folder on your computer. So in order to find the path or address of my file, which is what they want us to enter into the game, I'm going to type pwd, and there's also a shorthand for like doing it from desktop, which I kind of forgot, but it will give me the path of my working directory, which is the folder that I'm currently in. So I can see that it's users, it's my user, and then it's in desktop, and then OpenPixelArt, which corresponds to like what we did in the command line earlier. So I'm going to paste that into my thing and press hack, and then they'll be able to find where it actually is. So yeah, now I'm going to move on to the next one. Let me check the chat. So far, we have forked the repository. No, so far we've created our GitHub account. We have forked our repository from online to online. We have downloaded Git, or if you already have Git, and we have attached our name and email to Git. And now we've cloned our repository from online to local. So local is like my local machine. If my computer gets wiped, it's not going to exist anymore, but it'll still exist online, which is pretty cool. And now we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so now we are going to make a branch. Oh, bye, Christine. Hopefully you had fun. Now we're going to make a branch in our local Git repository. And so what a branch is basically, this is the analogy I used on the slides. Imagine you're painting a road. You want to paint a main road, but you don't want to accidentally mess up the main road. Like say you're using, I don't know, lead paint, and it's going to mess things up. You want to practice it on a side road first, and then somehow using some magic that we don't care about, once you've tested that side road and made sure that the paint is okay, you'll merge the side road with the main road and thereby paint the main road. So hopefully that analogy makes sense, but basically that side road is a branch. When you want to do some development, you don't want to mess up the main branch, which is also called the master branch, which is the one that holds the code. It's usually the one that's, that code is usually the one that's displayed on different websites or whatever app this is. So you want to go to a different branch and then make your changes, test them, make sure everything works. And then after, like Ashley said earlier, we'll merge it with the master branch, and the changes you made on your branch will be reflected in master. So we want to make a branch in our local Git repository. And the way that you do that is, first, you should always run git branch to make sure that you're on the right branch. And when you first open the project, you should be on the master branch. That's the one branch that every repository comes with. So I want to create a new branch. So I'm going to run git branch and then insert my branch name. So I'm going to call it, going through with the slides, and every single time I've done this, I'm going to call my branch Ashley, for my dear Ashley. And what that did is created one of those development branch. Oh, I will zoom in on my terminal. Thank you, Amen. Hopefully this is a little bit better for visibility. So now that I've created this branch, let me just check to make sure it's created. So git branch lists out all the branches, and we have Ashley, and we have master. And I don't think I need to move to this branch yet, but I'm gonna do it anyway, just so you guys can see. So now that branch has been created, but I'm still on master, because you can see that there's a star and it's green. So I want to move to the Ashley branch so that when I actually start changing the code, the code is stored on that branch and it's not messing up master. So to do that, I'm going to run git checkout and then insert branch name, which is Ashley. So it says successfully switched to branch Ashley. And if I run git branch again, now it's showing me that I'm on Ashley instead of master. So now I can safely make changes to my code, and I can delete it if necessary, or not if necessary. Sorry, I'm just reading what I'm saying. Yeah. So now that I've created the branch, I'm gonna put the branch name into the game, and it can like see. I don't know if it actually checks what we're doing. Someone can mess around with it and let me know. But
it does. It does.
It does.
You had to check out there. Yeah.
All right. Sweet. Okay. So yeah, run git branch and git checkout branch, and then you should be good to go for that station. So now we can see that my path is blocked, so I have to stop at this little, whatever this like space pod thing is. I'm gonna stop here. Now we're gonna actually start writing some code. So this is kind of a big step, I guess. It has a lot of things. So the first thing we want to do is download Node/npm, and I'm going to basically pray that people have already done this. I'll talk through this step, download Node while I'm doing it, so that we can kind of save a little bit of time and we can all move forward together. So Node.js, what it is I don't fully understand, but it basically hosts a lot of different JavaScript libraries, a lot of React websites, if you're familiar with, or like React uses Node.js. It's called a JavaScript runtime environment. Basically, it's a cool little technology that lets you make JavaScript things. You don't need to know too much about it for this. God, my computer is dying. Oh yeah, Amin, if you want to go explain Node for like 15 seconds, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So JavaScript basically is designed to run on like your web browsers, like Safari and Chrome. But what Node lets you do is it lets you run JavaScript on your local computer, like on your terminal. So that's what Node does.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's basically what Node is. You don't really need to know too much of the semantics of how it works or what it exactly is, but just know that you need it to run this project. Thank you to whoever made the poll.
I just launched a poll to see if anyone is still Okay, so I see someone does not have Node yet, and they're playing the game, so we can go ahead and wait for them. If you want, you can just send us whoever you are. You can send me a private message once you're done, and that way we'll know to move on. Don't want to leave you behind.
Yeah, I'm just gonna talk through the rest of the steps, but all of this is in the game, and also it's not super duper duper complicated, hopefully. So yes, thank you for putting the links in the chat. Very, very helpful. So NPM also is called, it doesn't really stand for Node Package Manager, but that's what everyone thinks it stands for, and that is what I think explains its use the most. But basically it just helps with, it's like a little helper with Node. It like will download the libraries you need, the dependencies that you need, and it's just, NPM is like your best friend when you're working with Node stuff. Let me just keep the chat open the whole time. Thank you. Sorry, my brother brought me my computer charger because it is dying. So npm install will download all of the code dependencies that you need for this project. That's okay, you can just put it over there. Thank you. Npm Start actually runs the project, and then it will be hosted on this website usually, which is the localhost :8080. And I'm gonna start doing that right now. So I'm gonna open up Visual Studio Code or whatever text editor you like. I like Visual Studio Code because it has a terminal built in. I don't really know if I don't know if there are like big competitions between like what the best code editor is. Frankly, I don't really care. I like Visual Studio Code. And so I just opened, okay, VS Code has the best themes. I have no idea how to change the themes, but I will trust you on that. I'm going to open a new terminal in Visual Studio Code. And terminal is literally just the same thing as this. It just is in a different format, I guess. It looks a little bit different. And the first thing I'm going to run is, I already have Node downloaded. NPM also comes with Node. So the first thing I'm going to run is npm install. What that does is installs all the different libraries and files and whatever that we need to get this project running. And if you're curious, you can look in the package.json file, and that has all the dependencies that we need for this project to run. I don't really know what any of it is, but I also don't care what any of it is because I know that the beauty of Node is that it's gonna run anyway. And my computer is officially red. Okay, so now it's installing right now. While I wait for that to happen and check the chat. Oh, thanks, Evan. I'm gonna charge my computer. Give me like 1 second.
While Maya's doing that, I know we're approaching 6, so if you do have to go, I'm just going to drop the feedback form one more time. But you don't have to leave. Like, we'll be here. I enjoy playing this game every time that we've played it.
Okay, so now I have installed everything. It does have a lot of vulnerabilities, but usually if it's like I guess a more, I don't know, important project, you would probably want to care about these vulnerabilities and figure out how to fix them. But since this is like a very small thing, I don't really care about it. So I've run npm install. Now I want to start up my project so I can see what it looks like. And to do that, I'm going to reopen the terminal, and make sure when you're running all these commands, you want to be in open pixel art, because that's the stuff where all these they're called node modules, which is like attached to the node stuff that's needed for this project. That's where all of them are downloaded. If I were to go to, I have a different node project. If I were to go to no filter and run these same commands, they would do completely different things. So now I'm going to run npm start, and that is going to start running the project. And it's going to give me the URLs that this project is being run on. Since it is a website, it's giving me a web URL. And I will copy and paste this into Google Chrome. And now we can see this is what the project looks like. And actually, if we go to openpixelart.com, which is what the original Twilio repository, this is that code, you can see that it looks exactly the same, just with like a couple changes. And you can also see my little initial pixel, which is pretty cool. So now that we've got that running, I want to add a new pixel. That's what all of these little pixel things are from different people submitting pull requests. I want to add my own new pixel. And to do that, it tells me where that file is. It only wants us to add it one file, because if I do something else, I could break the project, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go to the data/pixels.json file. I'm going to find it in data, pixels.json. And we can see that it looks to be this array of all these weird Y, X, color, username objects. So what are these? Y signifies the Y coordinate of these pixels. So we can see that the Y coordinate here is 48 and the X coordinate is 30. So if we actually go down to 4830, we'll see that this pixel exists, and we can check the color, which tells us what the color of the pixel is, and then the username, so the person it's attached to. So if I go back wherever that was, I can see that the username, like Fati068, is the same as the one here, which is pretty cool. So it means that this person edited this code on their own computer and submitted a pull request to the master repository for the Twilio Open Pixel Art project. And now it's reflected in there forever for whoever comes after them and clones the repository like we did. That pixel is like immortalized there forever. So now I'm going to add a pixel of my own, another one. So I'm just going to go wherever. You can add it wherever because there's a function to sort it after by the Y coordinates that we can run later. So I'm going to, what I just did, yeah, there is a lot going on. And what I just did was copy one of the pixel objects. And now I'm going to put in the values that I want. I think the values go up to 59. So I'll just put in like random ones. And then I'm going to put in a random color. And this is in hex code. Hopefully you might be familiar with that. If not, you'll get very familiar in CS33, and it's painful. And then for username, I'm going to put in my GitHub username because they want this to be attached to your GitHub username so that they can like make checks basically. So my GitHub username is MayaRamen19. And now I am going to save, I'm going to Command S and save this file. And so when I save this file, you can see that there's some stuff going on in the terminal. And basically what it's doing is it's reloading the project so that it can put this new code that I've added on the project itself. So if I go back to the website, and let's see, I put it at 1616. So if I go to the 16th coordinate, or like 16th X coordinate, 16th Y coordinate. Oh, I guess someone already put a pixel there. Let me, let's do 1617. Wait, hopefully that works. Yeah, if I go to 16.7, someone already put one there too. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Okay, now if I go to 16.18, we can see that the pixel that I've just added is reflected in our local repository. But we want to get it into this repository so that my pixel will be shown over here. And to make that happen, a lot of steps are going to go into that. The first thing that we want to do is commit our change to our local repository. So we want to save our change to this local repository. The first thing I'm going to do before that, though, is run npm run sort :open pixels, as it says here, because sorry if I'm going too fast. There's just kind of a lot in this, but put any questions in the chat. We will literally answer any questions. So I'm gonna run npm sort, npm run sort open pixels because they want to keep all of this organized. Sorry, I don't know if you're supposed to be private chatting, Ashley.
I'm sending it to everyone. I can't work it. I'm gonna DM.
Okay, perfect. So, sorry, I've started the sentence like 7 times. They want to keep everything, as you can see, all these pixels are organized by like their Y coordinate. So I want to keep it in that order so it makes it easier for the people that come after me. So I'm going to run the same command that they're telling me to run. And then now you can see that it sorted it. So if I can go back down to like 16 and there's my change. Now we're going to run. So like we said, we want to test things before we commit them. So a lot of open source projects have a bunch of sometimes automatic, I mean, mostly automatic if it's on your own computer, tests that you can run to make sure that you're not breaking anything. It ensures you haven't done anything to break the project with your changes. So if I changed any of these other files, then I would be in a little bit of trouble. So npm test. And it's gonna do a little bit of stuff. You might have to wait for a couple seconds. But yeah, so it says that I passed all the testing programs that they've run. So I can move on to my next step. So now we're gonna commit our changes. So like we said, committing is saving the change. It is like one snapshot of the code base captured in time, and it also saves everything. So if I want to ever go back to a previous commit, there are some commands I can run to do that. And to commit, first, I'm going to type in a command called git status. Called git status. And what git status does is it tells me what are all the files that I've changed. That I might need to commit all of them. I might only need to commit a few, but I need to know. And it tells me here, it says that I changed data/pixels.json, which I know I've changed, so that's great. And now I'm going to add the files, which basically is like the first step to committing them. It sets them up to be committed. And to do that, I run git add and then insert the file name. So that's _data/pixels.json. And when I run that, it's going to run silently. And now I know that it's added. So if I type in git status again, now it's green instead of red. And it says that it's changes to be committed. And then over here, it says changes not staged for commit, which is basically files that I've changed, but I haven't done anything to add them to Git yet. But now they're ready to be committed. So in order to commit, I will run git commit, and then I'm going to run it with the flag, which is like an extra option that you can put, -m, which signals to Git that I want to add a message. And you should always add with a message so that you know what you added. So I'm just going to say added a new, oh wait, don't run that yet. I always forget. In order for, this is something that's special for this repository. Thank you, William. For this repository, this project, this Twilio Labs project, in order for them to distinguish people adding pixels, because a lot of people have added pixels to this project, in order to distinguish those kind of changes from like actual changes, like maybe they're changing a bit of the design of the website, they're, I don't know, doing some other changes that they need to do. In order to distinguish those, we add this term feet (pixels) to the beginning of our commit message. And that way, when we actually send these changes to the repository, they can just run code. And yeah, thank you guys for coming. They can just run the code to analyze that message, and then it will be tested automatically to make sure that we didn't destroy anything. So I'm gonna run So I'm going to put that, oh my God, at the beginning of my commit message, and then I'll add like the actual message that I wanted to put. And then once I press enter, it's going to do that, and then it's going to run all these tests to make sure that everything is good, and it'll tell me how many things I changed. So I only changed one file, and I only added one line, which is what this output means. Okay, so now that was a lot of steps. What did I do? We downloaded Node, or like you downloaded Node. We learned how to use NPM a little bit, and then we added our own pixel. We Git added that change to set it up for a commit, and now we Git committed that change. So now this change is in Git forever. It's part of the history of this project, which is good because we want to save the history that we want. And then if you take CS97, you'll learn a bit more about how to reverse that history. But for our intents now, that history is there forever. So now I have committed. So I'm going to press hack because I did it. And now I have found the flame of open source, blah, blah, blah. We're just going to move on to the next. I don't really care. And it burns the brush. You can have fun with like the graphics later, but it is 606, so I'm gonna try to get through this. So if you move down, now I'm gonna press space. Now I want to push my changes upstream. Okay, this also kind of has a little bit to unpack. Upstream means sending the information back to where it came from. So remember how we cloned a repository onto our local machine from the remote repository. So the information flowed from the remote repository to the local repository. So downstream is going towards local, upstream is going towards remote. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we want to send this commit that we just made upstream back to the remote repository. So now it will be online. So if I want to access it from a different computer, I can access it online. Oh, wait, hold on. Also, you should always check what changes you're making, or what branch you're making your changes on. Thankfully, I'm still on Ashley. Sometimes you add to master and that's not good. So always, always, always before you develop, check what branch you're on. So in order to do that, to push our change upstream, we are going to go to help because there are some commands. And I first want to check what my remote repository is, what repository is attached. I kind of already know what it is because I know where I cloned it from. I know that it's probably going to be my open pixel art repository, but let's just run git remote v to see what our remote repository is. Okay, so it gave me my open pixel art repository. And it has these two words, fetch and push. So fetch is basically the repository that I get information from, and push is the repository that I send information to. In this case, they're the same. Sometimes they're not always the same, which frankly, I'm not super sure how to deal with that, but yeah, it works out. And then this word origin next to it, basically, this kind of means that it's the original repository that this code came from. Now, we know that's not true because we know that their original code came from Twilio's repository. But right now, our local repository is only connected to this URL, the maya19/openpixelart.git. It doesn't know about Twilio's repository, and we don't really care about that right now. But what I want to run to send this information back over there is a command that we're going to find here. Not quite. So, okay, sorry. So this command is it usually looks like git push something something, git push origin, whatever. If you're just developing on like your own code, you're not really worried about branch protections, you kind of are going on master, like you're pushing and doing all the changes on master, which you usually might do for when you're like more of a, I guess, quote, beginner programmer. It's what I did a lot when I was first learning how to use Git. you might see a lot of git push origin master, and that pushes directly to the online repository's master branch. But we don't want to do that. We're developing on our Ashley branch. We want to keep these to Ashley until we're sure that they can be merged with master. So in order to do that, we're going to use this command, and I'm going to break it down really quick. So git push tells us that we are pushing to a local repository, or sorry, we're pushing from a remote repository. Oh my God. We are pushing from a local repository to a remote repository. But which remote repository do we push to? That's where this set upstream command comes in. It's telling Git that I want to push which repository, whatever comes after this set upstream is the repository I want to push to. And that happens to be origin, which is basically Git's name for our Maya Rama 19/open pixel art. And then finally, we attach the branch name that we want to push to, which is the remote repository's version of Ashley. So if I run this, I'm just going to copy and paste it. This should transfer everything to, oh my God, hold on. Hopefully you won't have this. You are not going to have this issue, but it should basically transfer everything. Now what? To it should work. This is kind of frustrating. Sorry. Okay.
Yes, like debugging is our life now.
I can explain what just happened. So, like I said in the beginning of this workshop, I already have an open pixel art repository that I forked from a long time ago when we were like testing out the slides. And I pushed my changes back when I was testing out these slides to that repository, but they weren't reflected in what I cloned from the remote repository to this because it only cloned from origin, I believe, or sorry, from the master branch, I think, not the other development branches. And so since this, like it said, the quote branch tip was behind the remote version, basically all the code that was on there wasn't on mine yet. So if they have unsaved changes on mine and I have changes that are unsaved on theirs, we don't want to merge those two together yet because there could be a conflict. So that's kind of what happened. Hopefully that makes sense. And I was able to resolve it. But now I've pushed to my remote branch. So if I go, Jesus Christ, Zoom is so inefficient. If I go here back to my remote repository, and I reload, God, what the heck? It usually on yours, it will say that branch Ashley just had some recent changes. I don't know why it's not saying it here, but it'll say that, I promise. And there's a picture on the slides if you want to know what that looks like. But you'll be able to see these changes reflected in open pixel art, your open pixel art version. Let's look at our Ashley branch. Yeah, so here we can see that 2 minutes ago I had changes, which you guys saw me do in real time. So that's pretty cool. Now I've pushed my pixel upstream and pressed hack, and now I'm done with this section. And I think that's the most of what we're doing on our local machine. I can unfortunately not make a pull. I can try to make a pull request. I think it's going to get rejected because you can only make one per username, and I already have one on it. But to make a pull request, that's all going to be on github.com. So if I go, now what the heck? So if you go to GitHub, I don't know why I can't do it right now. We are having some technical difficulties. But basically, let me go to the slides. that will be good, because I don't know why my Git is throwing me it's throwing a little fit. When you first push to so now I've pushed to my local repository, my remote repository. I want to have those changes reflected on Twilio's remote repository so that they're reflected. My pixel is now on their website forever. So in order to do that, I want to make a pull request to their website, to their remote repository from my remote repository. And I can't do that because mine has messed up so many times, and I am not allowed to make a pull request to them anymore. But basically, if I went to my Open Pixel Art repository, I can see it usually will have that change, that branch Ashley had recent pushes 3 minutes ago. Right now, it thinks of it as a merge, not a push, so it kind of is not really I haven't really done things in the correct order, so now I'm kind of screwed for my pull request. If I had more time, I would work on fixing it, but we don't really have time. So I'm just gonna do things from the slides, but there should be a big green button that says compare and pull request. Whenever you push to a development branch, there's gonna be compare and pull request. So if I click that button, it's gonna take me to another page. And should I present these slides, Ashley? Okay, let me stop sharing, and I am going to, yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties, but also not sorry because it happens. Can you see the slides? Okay, so it takes me to this screen, which hopefully if you guys are following along with either this video or the Zoom meeting, you'll be able to see the screen once you make your pull request. And if not, perhaps Ashley and I can give you guys our emails at the end of this. I don't know, but so what we're seeing at the top, let's unpack this screen. What we're seeing at the top is that GitHub already knows that we want to send this to the Twilio Labs Open Pixel Art repository because that's where we forked from in the beginning. And forking is like the most basic process for, or the most basic step into making a pull request for open source stuff. So GitHub kind of already knows that. And then it has this message that says able to merge. These branches can be automatically merged. And what that means is there are no conflicts. So there is no code that's in the Twilio Open Pixel Art thing that would conflict with the code that I've added. And Git uses some like Git magic to do that. You'll learn CS97. But basically, if I push my, if I merge my Ashley branch with Twilio Labs' Open Pixel Art master branch, things will be fine. That's all it's saying. Please. Okay. And then after that, there's like a section where you can add a comment. Usually these comments are going to be, I mean, this is like quite a small change, so this comment doesn't have to be really that thorough at all. But when you're actually committing to open source, try to write a thorough comment, talk about what you did, maybe some issues you faced or weren't able to fix. That makes it a lot easier when these things are being manually edited and the pull requests are being manually approved. It makes it a lot easier for the people who are doing that. So that's all, like, it's not required for making a pull request, but it is just basically the bare minimum into being considerate in the open source community. And then finally, once you've done all of that, you can press the create pull request button. And wait, Ashley, can you make another poll to ask if people are following along, or if you're following along, can you put stuff in the chat?
To see if people are playing right now?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So to the person who's playing, hopefully things are going okay. If I'm going to move on, hopefully things are fine. But again, if you have questions, then message any one of us that are like, or like either me, Ashley, Amin, or Nisha, I think. Yeah. So once you've created your pull request, you should be able to basically click on the title of your pull request and the number will be right next to it. And that's the thing that we have to plug into the game that unfortunately I am unable to do. Although actually I can plug in this number and we can move on. And the reason, oh, you guys can't see my screen. I just plugged it into my game and it accepted it. The reason it did that is because, like we said, GitHub and Git immortalizes a lot of these things in, I don't know if I don't know if I'm using the right word when I say immortalizes. But yeah, like we said, Git and GitHub are version histories, so they save a lot of these things. So this pull request is saved in GitHub that I made the first time that I ever played this game is saved in GitHub forever. So it's kind of showing us like how we can exploit Twilio's code in the game, and because they're not actually checking if this pull request is still open, because mine has already been closed and accepted. But this just goes to show how much is actually saved in Git and GitHub. So finally, we can merge our pull request. This is a very satisfying thing. You can press a big green button. It's really nice. Usually in some open source things or just any GitHub project you use in general, you're going to have to wait for someone to manually go through the code and approve your pull request. Like Matt Wang from TeachLA does that for me and Amin and Nisha all the time. Shout out No Filter. But in this case with Open Pixel Art, because we added the feet parentheses pixels to the beginning of the commit message, they have some code that runs automatically, checks to make sure we didn't mess anything up, and then approves the pull request based on that, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture. Oh, I do have a picture of the big green button. So once everything it's been approved, your pull request has been approved, everything has passed, you don't have any conflicts, you can merge the branch without messing anything up, you can click on merge pull request, and that's going to basically add your little pixel that you made to the Twilio's Open Pixel Art repository. And then if you wait for like, I don't know, 1 minute so that the code can actually reload for them and go to Twilio's Open Pixel Art repository, you can see the pixel that you made on their website forever. You can go on it on your phone, you can go on it on another computer, it's going to be there forever. And that's the core of contributing to open source and making a pull request. As a recap, first, we found the repository we want to work on, which was Twilio's Open Pixel Art project. We forked the repository to make our own online version on our GitHub account. Then we cloned that online repository to our local machine. We edited the changes in our local machine. I believe there is a way to edit it in GitHub as well, but you should like never ever do that. But yeah, we made the changes on our local machine. We used Git to add and commit our changes, so it saves it in Git forever. Then we used Git to push it back to our local repository online. And then we made a pull request, also called a merge request. I know the name pull request is a little bit misleading. Then we made a pull request to merge those changes with Twilio's Open Pixel Art repository. So you can kind of see how it traveled from one place to another and then all the way back to where it started, which is the Twilio repository. And then now you can see that your changes are reflected in openpixelart.com. You can delete all the stuff on your local machine if you want. I wouldn't really recommend that, but like you can. And yeah, hopefully if you were following along, to the one person that's following along, I hope that we didn't lose you along the way. And to the people who are watching on YouTube, I also hope we didn't lose you along the way. I'm also sorry about my technical difficulties. But yeah, that is how you make a pull request, and I will send it back to Ashley for resources. And if you have any technical questions in the chat, or technical questions, please put it in the chat and I will try to help.
yeah, so this is pretty much our last thing before we open it up for any questions that anyone has, conceptual or technical or otherwise. So we just wanted to drop this kind of to go full circle. So like, if you enjoyed what we did, whether it's what I talked about in the beginning, if you think that open source is something interesting, if you want to get involved with things like Hack for LA, or work on any of the kind of activism or like social impact oriented open source projects, then you might want to, if you're a beginner, like maybe kind of me, then you might want to figure out like, how else can I start like getting the ball rolling if I want to get involved in open source. So I've linked a bunch of resources on this slide. So again, if you have access to the slides, then you can look at this afterwards. I'll just really briefly go over them. So First Timers Only is a really cool, like big amalgamated list of resources for people who are first timers at open source. And some of the resources on that list may actually overlap with the rest of this list on this slide. But for example, Code Triage is like a service that you basically sign up for with your email, like you subscribe to it for free, I believe, and you pick which like repos you want to work on that you find interesting, and then they'll periodically send like new issues to your inbox for you to work on them, which I thought was really cool. But they also have this like algorithm which will, I think, check how like responsive you are. So if you are like really busy, it won't just keep spamming you, it will like adjust, I guess. So that's really cool. So if you want to have something that'll just like pop reminders to you of like, hey, if you have free time, work on this open source project, maybe Code Triage is something you want to do. There's also Contribute to this project, where if you can click on it, you can see, but basically the contribution that you make will contribute onto the website, similar to how you added like a pixel art today. But you basically will add like a card, obviously a virtual card, to that web page with your name, your Twitter handle, a short like description of who, like introduction of who you are, and then like 3 links to useful resources for web developers that you would recommend. Then there's the GitHub Good First Issue label. So like I mentioned in the beginning of our presentation, there's like a Good First Issue tag that sometimes developers of open source projects will use, so that if something is kind of like a lower difficulty issue, then maybe first timers or beginners at open source can work on those like issues, those bugs. So that's a list of all the public GitHub repos with that tag, Good First Issue. And then lastly, there's the Awesome for Beginners GitHub, which is an actual like repo on GitHub that has an amalgamated list of really cool beginner-friendly projects that you can work on, and it's sorted by programming language. And then for each of those projects or repos, it also tells you what is the like beginner-friendly tag that they have that you can filter by within those projects. So if it's like, whether it's the Good First Issue tag or they have their own tag, maybe it's like beginner friendly or something like that. This Awesome for Beginners GitHub repo will tell you like which tag to use in each project. And if you only know certain programming languages, you can scroll straight to those programming languages so you can work on those repos. So that is it. We're gonna, oh yeah, Maya just dropped the slides and feedback form again. So please fill that out. If you hated it, if you enjoyed it, if you love us, if you're feeling lukewarm about it, still fill it out. We would appreciate it. Thank you. And then can you go to the next slide, Maya? Again, the membership portal code, we can drop that in the chat as well. And then the last thing is just a thank you and a little plug of our last workshop for the series, which is 2 Thursdays from now, same time, 5 p.m. We will be having a club panel. So if you're interested in getting involved in social impact tech while here at UCLA, we will have a bunch of cool UCLA student orgs at that panel. You can also email us if you have any questions. And then you can also like follow us on GitHub if you want. You don't have to, but it's there. If you have the slides, you can reference that as well. So thank you everyone for coming. Feel free to let us know if you have any questions. Thank you, and fill out the feedback form.